Welcome to Alaska Gateway School District short video series on lesson planning and classbright. One of the things that classbright has the ability to do is to create curriculum maps. And so I'm going to show you how to do that today. So from our classbright dashboard, I'm going to create a curriculum map for my science class that I've already set up. So to go into the course itself, I'm going to click right on it here in my dashboard. And when I click on the course itself, I always come to this course page here. And this gives me the basic information about that I have input for the course. And so one of the tabs that we see in the course, and we've looked at this before, if we want to make a plan, we go into the plans tab. But there's also this maps units tab, and I'm going to show you how you can use that to create a curriculum map. So when I create this, I get to this sheet right here that is blank at the moment. And what I usually people want to do is you kind of block out your year in units by concept or depending on the class, by projects or things like that. And so this is for a third grade science class, and I know I want to group this out into some specific units for the year. So one of the first units I want to do is on plants. And you notice here that I have the ability to change the date on this. I have a start date, and it shows on the calendar next to it what dates I have blocked out over here. For the purposes of this demonstration, I'm not really going to mess with the dates too much. It's not too difficult to do. Right when you're creating the unit, you can change the estimated duration of your plan or of your unit. I will say it defaults to 5, and unless you're really stuck on looking at this calendar, which for some people is really helpful, it's not necessary to use the date function, but you can if you want to make sure you're mapping it out correctly for the year and to look at the calendar and how you're spreading things out. So for the rest of this demonstration, I'm not going to really pay much attention to setting a time. I just want you to be aware that that is a function that you can use. So for my next unit, I want to do a unit on living things. And right now you notice I'm not putting anything in these units, I'm just laying out the units themselves. And so for right now, I'm going to start out with just 4 units. Obviously, I could continue on. I'm going to do more than 4 units in science for my entire year in 3rd grade. But for now, for the purposes of this demonstration, I'll just start with 4. Again, if you do want to change the date, you can go into the gears here and you can change the date here. Okay. So one of the things that happens from this unit is I'll see my units laid out here, and when I'm ready to put things in, I can go right to the unit itself. So when I click on plant, I get this sheet right here, and I can tell I'm in the unit plan. My unit plan's name is for plants. The duration currently is set for 5 days, but I can change that. This section here allows me to put in topics. So for my plant unit, I know that right now that some of the topics I want to include is parts of a plant, I want to include plant classification, I want to include some information about plant survival, and I want to talk about where plants grow, what kind of environments they grow in. Okay. I can change these at any time. To change any of my topics, when I scroll over it, you see the little pencil pops up. When I click on the pencil, I have the opportunity to go in here and change that and then click update. I can also, when I click on the pencil, hit the trash can and delete that particular topic if I change my mind later. So editing them is really easy. If I want to eventually kind of call these into names of lessons that I want to do during this unit, I can certainly do that. And if I want to change the order, when I scroll over one, all I do is click and drag, and I can change the order of these topics as well. So this is really kind of a free-form place for you to list the topics you want to cover in your lesson. Essential questions. In my unit on plants, I want to make sure that we put forth the essential question of how do plants use their parts. That's something I want my students to explore in this unit. And I also want them to answer the question, how can we classify plants? And I also want to explore the idea of how do plants survive and reproduce in different environments. Okay, so there are my essential questions that I want right now that I'm planning to explore during the course of this unit. And you notice that right now, and just like above in topics, I can edit and move these around. But there are some other categories here, and from this screen, I can't put anything in them. I can add to some of those by going to the Setup button over here. And I can put a general description of the unit here if I want. If I have an enduring understanding that's kind of going to guide the unit, I can put it here. And also if I have an assessment plan, this is a great place to put things like projects. And so maybe for a project, I want my students and I can always stretch this section out if I want to see it a little bit bigger. So maybe for a project, I want students to write a set of directions telling somebody how to care for a houseplant. If I'm planning this for the future, I can just leave rough ideas in here, and I can go in and change them and kind of make them a little bit more specific at any time. Okay. So right now, I've got an idea for an assessment plan, some essential questions, and some topics. It's possible now that for this entire unit, maybe now or at some later time, I already know what standards I want my students to be addressing while we're in this unit. If I already want to pre-select my standards, I can go to this selector button here. And I go to my curriculum source. Since it's science, this is going to come out of the content standards in the Alaska GLEs. And this would be science standards would be my content area. The domain would be a life science for 3rd grade. And so when I narrow my parameters like that, I know that understanding of how science explains changes in life forms, especially in plants, and so I'm going to check that. I'm going to include that. Let's see, I want to an understanding of the behavior and development of life cycles, and that would go along with sorting animals and plants into groups. Okay. So those are just 2 for sure I know that I'm going to include in this. So I can go back to my unit, and now I see that I've pre-selected standards that I want to include in this unit, and they're there. I can also add resources to go along with this unit if I want to. And so to do that, I go back to the selector button, and I go over here to the resource tab. There may be a resource already in classbright that I know of that I want to attach to this unit, or I may have my own resources that I want to attach to this unit. To add a new resources that I want to attach, I can go over here to add a new resource. If I want to sort one, if I know who the owner is, perhaps it's a curriculum resource that I know exists, and I search and I know I want to do a adopt a tree. There's an adopt a tree resource, and so I want to search for that. Okay, maybe that's That's not existing here. Um, Maybe I just want to look for a plants resource. Okay. And there's several pages of plant resources here. And these could be resources put in by anyone. It depends on who I choose. So maybe a thematic unit on plants or something is a resource that I want to remember to use. So I can select it, and now that's attached too. So when I go back to the unit, I'll see that there's a resource attached right to it. And remember, I could also have attached my own resources. The main point about this is when I go back and look at these units, as the year goes by, we find different things or come across different resources, or they're shared with us, and we think, oh, that would be great for when eventually, 5 months from now, I'm working on the Earth unit with my students, but I don't want to forget about that. So what I can do is go into that unit right now, and I can attach resources, I can attach standards, I can work on topics or essential questions, and I can start planning far out ahead of time before I actually do the unit. So that's one of the benefits of setting up a curriculum map in classbright is it allows me to kind of get some things in place, so when I actually finally get to working on that unit, lesson planning is really a snap, because I already have collected a lot of things together and done a lot of pre-planning, and I'm not trying to pull together a complicated unit at the spur of the moment.